Sometimes the most important organizational shifts don't come from blockbuster trades or nine-figure contracts, but from moments where a franchise quietly recalibrates its risk tolerance. The Toronto Blue Jays are approaching one of those moments right now, not because they suddenly need a savior, but because circumstances are forcing them to decide how aggressively they want to convert long-term upside into short-term value. And at the center of that decision is a pitcher whose timeline has been completely rewritten by injury, patience, and opportunity. Welcome back to Blue Jays Report, your home for in-depth Toronto Blue Jays analysis. The news itself is straightforward, but the implications are anything but. Ricky Tiedemann, once the organization's most prized pitching prospect, is back on a mound facing live hitters after nearly 2 full seasons lost to injury and recovery. This isn't a simulated step. This isn't theoretical progress. This is a pitcher competing again in spring training environments, testing his rebuilt arm against major league caliber bats. For a franchise already navigating early season pitching uncertainty, that matters. To understand why this development carries weight, you have to rewind to where Tiedemann stood before everything stalled. He was widely viewed as a frontline starter in waiting, a physically imposing left-hander with swing-and-miss stuff, unusual command for his age, and the kind of strikeout profile teams try to draft rather than develop. Then nerve issues shut him down. Then came Tommy John surgery, and suddenly 2 developmental years vanished. What has changed since then isn't just health, it's how his body works. Prior to surgery, Tiedemann was pitching with structural limitations in his elbow that restricted extension and forced compensations in how he shaped his breaking ball. That matters because modern pitching development is obsessed with efficiency. Remove the physical restriction, and suddenly mechanics can clean up, velocity plays more naturally, and secondary pitches become less stressful to repeat. That's not speculation, that's biomechanics. The Blue Jays aren't pretending he's immediately a starter again, and that's where this gets interesting. Their plan is to bring him back as a one-inning reliever, carefully managing workload while allowing his raw stuff to play at full intensity. On the surface, some fans see that as a downgrade. In reality, it solves a very specific problem Toronto now has. Look at the context. The club enters 2026 with real pitching attrition. Bowden Francis is lost for the year. Shane Bieber begins the season on the injured list. Anthony Santander's shoulder surgery has ripple effects on roster flexibility. Toronto built its winter around stability at the front with arms like Kevin Gausman, Dylan Cease, and Jose Barrios. But stability doesn't eliminate the need for depth. It magnifies it. Injuries don't ask whether your rotation looks good on paper. This is where Tiedemann's role becomes strategic rather than sentimental. One high-leverage inning from a left-hander throwing upper 90s with a true wipeout slider isn't a consolation prize. It's a controllable, cost-efficient weapon. Financially, this is critical. The Blue Jays are balancing competitive urgency with payroll discipline. Developing internal relief impact rather than buying it on the market preserves flexibility at the trade deadline and beyond. But this approach also creates new questions. Can his stuff play on back-to-back days? How does his command hold under major league pressure? And perhaps most importantly, does success in relief accelerate a permanent shift away from starting, or does it become a bridge back to the rotation in 2027? Those aren't problems yet, but they're coming. Zoom out further and consider the AL East. Tampa Bay has mastered converting starters into elite relievers. Baltimore weaponizes youth depth relentlessly. New York buys certainty. Toronto sits somewhere in between, trying to win now without sacrificing tomorrow. If Tiedemann clicks quickly, that's not just another arm, it's a philosophical win for player development. There's real tension here. If this works, the Blue Jays gain an impact pitcher without spending prospect capital or money, and they extend their competitive window by proving patience can pay off. If it fails, they've still protected a valuable asset, but they've lost precious time in a division that punishes hesitation. Projecting forward, imagine a 2026 pitching staff where the rotation holds steady, the bullpen gains a power lefty capable of neutralizing elite bats like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. sees daily in practice, and the organization enters the summer with options rather than desperation. That's what this move is designed to create: optionality. This story isn't about a comeback narrative. It's about resource management, risk mitigation, and whether Toronto can extract real value from adversity. Ricky Tiedemann doesn't need to save the season. He needs to prove he belongs in meaningful innings again. Everything beyond that is leverage. This has been Blue Jays Report. Let me know where you stand in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Toronto Blue Jays coverage.